It's burning hot, we on fire. I say hands up, I'm good in the VIP. I got my right here with me. I'm so fly. I got money, so that's a good enough reason to buy the things I buy.
If you're out there looking for the bull, it's a good chance it's gonna come to you.
I wash my hands with feelings as far as the industry goes, you know?
He was raised by his mother alongside his two siblings while his father sat behind bars.
My father wasn't around, so she kind of forced me to grow up faster. Like, I was walking to the store to buy her cigarettes when I was 10 years old.
A boy without a father figure, without a blueprint, without guidance. But instead of taking the messy path like most kids in his shoes, Lloyd turned that silence into music. Instead of sinking, he rose. One bar, one rhyme, one beat at a time, carving his name deep into the DNA of hip-hop. Now let's be clear. His government name, Christopher Charles Lloyd. But come on, does that name sound like it has any street heat? Absolutely not. Gave him a name that stuck like sweat in the summer. Lloyd Banks. Once it hit the airwaves, it never left. Born on April 30th, 1982 in Baltimore, Maryland, you might think his roots were in the South, but that man grew up deep in South Jamaica, Queens, a whole different kind of jungle. Puerto Rican and African-American blood ran through his veins, and New York City raised him with that hard-knock rhythm and heartbeat that only a true New Yorker understands. His mom, Rosa Lloyd, wasn't about to let him go astray. She had one line on repeat: "Don't be like your daddy." And young Lloyd listened. He showed up in school like a good son, enrolled at August Martin High, and tried to walk the line. But at 16, while other kids were still trying to pass math tests, Lloyd decided he was done with the classroom. He wasn't failing, he was evolving. The world needed to hear him, and he wasn't going to wait for a diploma to make noise. Now picture this: Queens, late 90s, a young kid with fire in his voice and dreams in his chest. Then, boom, fate steps in, and he links up with two names that would change his life forever: 50 Cent and Tony Yayo.
We all grew up together, and me and Yayo always had a relationship. We were young, like close in age.
Together they formed G-Unit, and the streets went silent for a second, just to hear what this trio was about to do.
Look at how my lifestyle changed up. I'm on now, goddammit.
But like any story with legends in the making, it didn't stay sweet for long. 50 signed with Aftermath, started doing big boy tours like Rough Riders and Cash Money, and Tony Yayo, being older and more seasoned, went along for the ride. Lloyd, he was left behind, alone, no crew, no spotlight. But instead of folding, he turned that isolation into fuel. He started hopping on neighborhood mixtapes, rapping like he had something to prove, because he did. And the streets started to buzz. That buzz turned into fire. And soon, Lloyd Banks wasn't just another kid with a mic, he was a problem. Then things took off. 50 Cent got his own label under Dr. Dre. And when he dropped Get Rich or Die Tryin', Lloyd was right there with him on the track Don't Push Me.
So don't push me. Feel your ass up with lead. So don't push me.
And the PIMP.
Then I'm a PIMP.
And then came the G-Unit album Beg for Mercy in 2003. Platinum. Just like that. But Lloyd, he wasn't built for the group life. He wanted his own space, his own lane. So he did what greats do, stepped out on his own. He dropped his solo debut, The Hunger for More, and lit up the charts. The single On Fire, featuring 50, was a monster.
Get too hot up in this spot, we on fire.
That album didn't just hit, it exploded. Debuted at #1 on Billboard, over 433,000 copies in the first week alone. Platinum status, over 1.5 million sold. Lloyd had arrived. Now, just when people thought he'd chill, he went back to the studio hungry for more. Literally. His second album was titled The Big Withdrawal. He poured everything into it. The beats, the verses, the storytelling. But then the wildest thing happened. After having a wild night with two women, a night he clearly enjoyed a little too much, he left the only copy of the album behind. Just like that, gone. And not long after, the album showed up online, leaked, all of it, every last track. That moment right there, that would have broken most artists. But Lloyd laughed through the pain, dusted himself off, and said maybe it's time to stick with one woman. Not because he suddenly became a saint, but because losing an entire album like that will humble any man. But Lloyd wasn't done. He came back with Rotten Apple in October 2006. It didn't hit as hard as his first, but it still pulled in 143,000 copies in its first week. Enough to remind folks he wasn't some one-hit wonder. He was still out here. Then came his third studio album in 2010. HFM 2, The Hunger for More 2. Another dose of that Banks heat. Tracks like Beamer, Benz, or Bentley.
Beamer, Benz, or Bentley. Beamer, Benz, or Bentley. Beamer, Benz, or Bentley.
And Started Up featuring Swizz Beatz kept the energy going.
Start it up. Wait a minute.
Banks was still that guy. Cool, confident, unshaken. But he didn't just stop at music. This man had screen presence too. He stepped into the acting world with movies like Morning Glory and Sleepless. And let's just say he didn't come to play. He owned those scenes like a seasoned pro. Then he also lent his voice to video games like 50 Cent Bulletproof and 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. He was everywhere. He popped up on shows like Flavor of Love, Chelsea Lately, and more. Banks was the kind of guy who made everything look easy, whether he was spitting bars, delivering lines, or just walking in the room. But none of this came easy. Banks had his share of pain. On September 10th, 2001, just one day before the world changed, he was shot twice after leaving a nightclub in Southside Jamaica. He got hit in the back and stomach, and he ran to the nearest hospital. The next morning, he woke up to the horror of 9/11, watching the Twin Towers collapse right from his hospital bed. Imagine surviving a shooting only to watch your country fall apart the next day. In 2005, another mess came calling. Banks, Young Buck, and their crew were pulled over after running a red light in Manhattan. Cops found weapons in the van. Things got serious quick, but after months of legal drama, the charges were dropped. Prosecutors confirmed neither rapper was holding the guns, but still, that stain stuck around for a while. Then came 2010 in Canada. Banks and his team got into it with the concert promoter over some shady performance payments. Things escalated fast. Charges were filed, aggravated assault, robbery, and confinement. Bail was set at $50,000. It was messy. It was loud. But eventually, the noise died down. And then there was the Gang. When Gang walked away from G-Unit, it wasn't just a clean break. It became a full-blown feud.
Last time I heard G-Unit was dead, out of his mouth. So why would you want to reunite with a corpse?
Banks believes jealousy played a role. His debut was flying, he was winning lyricist titles, and that kind of shine doesn't always sit well with everyone in the room. But if you think any of that slowed him down, you don't know Lloyd Banks. That man kept moving. Awards started stacking up. Mixtape Artist of the Year in 2004, Best Collaboration at the BET Awards, and even a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Solo Performance in 2005. Banks had the receipts. But even legends get quiet. After parting ways with G-Unit, Banks stepped out of the spotlight for a bit. No drama, just silence. But he didn't disappear. Instead, he rebranded. He introduced his own clothing line, reinvented himself. Then in 2021, he came back swinging with the Chorus of the Inevitable, and in 2022, dropped Part 2. Then again in 2023 with the Chorus of the Inevitable 3, Piece of My Pain. It didn't shake the earth the way his debut did, but fans were glad Banks was back, and that's all they needed. Fast forward to April 30, 2025, his 43rd birthday. Most people get cake. Banks gave the world a mixtape, AON3, Despite My Mistake.
I've been through it, and the story's written all on my face, but I know you're still looking after me.
18 tracks of that old school fire, served fresh. He said it himself, this was the perfect birthday gift. And guess what? He's still touring. According to Songkick, he's headed to the Minneapolis Varsity Theater. This man is not slowing down. At 43, Lloyd Banks is aging like the finest bottle of wine you've ever touched. His net worth, $9 million. All earned, no gimmicks. From writing rhymes to acting, from mixtapes to movies, Banks has touched it all. And whatever he touches turns into gold. He's more than a rapper. He's a story, a journey, a living legend walking among us. So the next time you want to hear real rap, the kind that brings you back, the kind that gives you chills, don't forget about Lloyd Banks. He still got it, and he never really left.